Dentistry in General Radio Network presents
The Bald Truth, the Dental Politics Podcast Special Edition. Dr. Rizkallah, the author of Massachusetts' groundbreaking dental loss ratio law, provides an in-depth explanation of the dental loss ratio and its current status nationwide during his presentation at the 2024 AGD Virtual Advocacy Conference.
Well, thank you for having me. I go by Mo. They call me Dr. Mouhab Rizkallah, but I just go by Mo. And I think many of you already know me because I've discussed in many forums dental loss ratio and question 2. As most of you know, I am the author and filer of Massachusetts ballot question 2, which was passed in 2022. And today I'll be talking about the dental loss ratio reforms in the states and Massachusetts updates. To begin with, let's just talk about what dental loss ratio is. Most of you know this, but for those who don't, it's not that complicated, except for when it is. When it's not complicated, dental loss ratio is simply paid claims for patients over total premium revenue. Pretty simple. So an example would be the Massachusetts 83% dental loss ratio standard, which would be in Massachusetts, since Massachusetts is a $1 billion state volume for dental insurance, all of the dental insurers in this state need to pay a total altogether of $830 million. So that's what we expect based on this law. Of the $1 billion in volume we have, we expect all insurers to put in there at least 83%, totaling $830 million in purchasing power for dental patients. So what is DLR's relationship to Massachusetts question 2 exactly? So Massachusetts question 2 was the first dental voter ballot in the nation. Kind of cool, 2022. The question that I put to voters was this: do you want a minimum 83% value out of your dental insurance premium? It's kind of a no-brainer because everyone would say, yes, I want minimum value insured, yes. Do you also want rebates if the 83% value is not achieved? Also a no-brainer. Do you want transparent value reporting of revenue and expenses of the insurer? Also a no-brainer. We had impactful ads. I could show them to you if anyone's interested at the end, but I won't take the time now to do it. And we won, not surprising, a whopping 72% victory. Why not surprising? Because when you ask the right questions in a ballot, you'll generally win by a landslide. Now, I would qualify this ballot question as the first meaningful dental loss ratio in the nation, and I will characterize the word meaningful later in this presentation. This is a fun picture. This is November 7th, 2022 at our watch party at the Copley Fairmont in Boston. That was our logo. Vote yes on 2, and it was a beautiful, beautiful space and a fun time seeing us just win that day. And this is basically the committee that I formed. You can see me there on the right. The top row is 5 doctors. The bottom row is 5 patients. That relationship of the 5 doctors and the 5 patients is the doctor-patient relationship. And the dental loss ratio that we know as Massachusetts question 2 took back the doctor-patient relationship in Massachusetts from insurers who were trying to control the doctor-patient relationship. Notably, on the top left is Dr. Abe Abdul, very special person in this effort. So you can't quite see him, but just next to him is Dr. Robert Petrosino. Then there's Dr. Andrew Chase, Dr. Patricia Brown, and then my wife, Dr. Laura Rizkallah. Those are the doctors. The patients are Joanne, Sid, Linda, Daisy, and Neil. Their names matter to me because these people were the ones who stepped out to start a revolution. I should note that while we're here in an advocacy meeting, this work was actually not filed through organized dentistry. This was filed outside of organized dentistry, and organized dentistry wonderfully came in behind us and supported us. But when you think about what can be done outside of organized dentistry, imagine what can be done when we pool our minds and resources. I spoke of the word meaningful earlier, and I want to take a moment to sort of characterize what is meant by meaningful DLR. Changes A meaningful DLR changes insurer profit paradigms, okay? So the insurer in most states makes more money by spending less on patient care, but not in Massachusetts anymore. We've shifted the paradigm. Now insurers make more by spending more on patient care. And here's the caveat. They have to do that by not increasing patient insurance premiums. So this is a tall order. We're trying to create a profit paradigm where insurers make more by spending more. That's a sea change in insurance. So how does that get done? What's the mechanism? Let me give you the Massachusetts example. As I previously described, Massachusetts is a $1 billion state insurance revenue for dental. An 83% meaningful DLR in this state would mean that $830 million is spent on patient care, and the insurer gets to keep the remaining 17%, which is $170 million. In that case, nothing is rebated by the insurer. But what if the insurer only spends $750 million on patient care? What happens to the insurer's 17%? It's still 17%, but the dollar value drops. The insurer gets to keep $127.5 million, and now they have to pay out of their own administrative expenses. They have to rebate and pay to rebate and send mail and checks out of $122.5 million. That's a chore. But what if they only spend $500 million on patient care? They still only get 17%, which means they get to keep $85 million, and then they have to rebate, in this instance, but the math is $450 million. And again, the cost of those rebates doesn't come out of the rebated amount. It comes out of their 17%. Now, on the flip side, what if they spent all of it on patient care? It's a $1 billion market, okay? And they spend all billion on patient care. What do they get to keep? Actually, there's nothing left, okay? So they don't want to overspend, okay? So and in that case, also nothing is rebated. So naturally, what you've all listened to this and you're going to say, where are they going to want to be? Where's their maximum? Well, their maximum is naturally going to be to get to 83%. And that's where we expect insurers to tend to conglomerate, but not necessarily, because some insurers are actually going to say, you know what, even if we can maximize at 83%, we can actually differentiate our market by being higher than 83%, because now, as I mentioned to you, this is transparent reporting. That means everybody knows what these insurers are actually paying out in value, which means, say, a Blue Cross Blue Shield might be competing with a Delta Dental and say, if Delta's at 83, let's go to 86. And I'm going to show you that's actually what's happened, okay? By differentiating, they can get more market share. They will get less per member, but they will get more members, and they can increase their profits and maximize their profits, even if they decrease, even if they step away from that maximizing 83% percentage. But that's the mechanism to change from they make more by spending less to they make more by spending more. Now, I alluded a little bit to what actually happened, and there are many insurers still in the market. There are 21 insurers in the market. I'll show you a graph on that, actually a table on that. But what are the big players doing, okay? What is the percentage that Massachusetts insurers actually projected for 2025? Delta Dental of Massachusetts, they've moved now from 72.3% to 83.3%. I'm going to show that to you. This is actually their submission on a form called the data collection tool. The data collection tool is something that we developed through Question 2. And it shows their 3, 2, and 1 year prior dental loss ratios based on the math that we said they had to use, okay? And their numbers are 70, 71, and 74%. And their average taken together is actually 73.3% for the past 3 years. And what's their projected DLR that you can see here? 83.3%. So they went from 72.3% to 83.3%. That is an increase of 11% for Delta Dental. Blue Cross Blue Shield, I'm not going to show you their data, but it's the same collection tool. In their collection tool, they couldn't provide 3 years of previous data because they didn't have a formula to break it out of their medical component, because Blue Cross Blue Shield was combining it through medical. So they don't have the prior 3 years, but what they did say is that their proposed plan gets to 86%. You see what just happened there? They're competing with Delta Dental. And that means the Blue Cross Blue Shield in 2026 is going to be able to tout their plan as better to employers, to individuals, and say, buy us, we provide better value. And that's one of the wonderful things about having robust, clean reporting, which is what I required in Massachusetts question 2. Now, to put this in perspective, okay, let's say Delta Dental is an example of the change in prior dental loss ratio to current dental loss ratio. We said that's 11%. But let's just say for a moment that it was just 10%, okay? 10% of $1 billion market. 10% of $1 billion market, using Delta as an example, which has the lion's share of the market right now, means a $100 million per year increase in patient buying power. Wow, $100 million per year. When you start to look at the ballot question and its cost, and we will go into that, you come to realize this is one of the biggest returns on investment I've ever heard of in dentistry. And I'll be making the argument that we should be doing this more in other states, a ballot question. Now, the caveat you'll recall that I provided was to do this without increasing premiums. Okay. Now, how do you do it? How do you create magically $100 million worth of buying power increase without increasing premiums? Let me show you. You have to close what I call the big 3 loopholes in loss ratios. And they are charitable contributions, which are typically paid out in big chunks, like 25% every couple of years, big chunks of annual revenue. Broker fees, which range from 5 to 20%, and quality improvement activities, which range from 1 to 5%. And I'll go into each individual one. But basically, the big 3 loopholes take a real DLR and turn it into a fake DLR, which we'll go through in a moment. As I mentioned to you previously, real, meaningful DLR is quite simple, right? It's paid claims over total premium revenue. I gave you the Massachusetts volume market of $1 billion, 83% being $830 million of purchasing power for patients, okay? A fake DLR does something funny with the equation. It adds a second component of adjustments, okay? So you've got the fake DLR, you've got the left side is the same as the real DLR, but the right side adds, in the numerator, it adds broker fees and QIA, which were 2 of the loopholes we mentioned, and then the denominator, it subtracts charitable contributions. Now, let me show you the gravity of these loopholes, okay? Never mind the broker fees, never mind the QIA. I'm just going to focus on one to show you the gravity of one of these loopholes, okay? Let's say you have an 83% DLR, like Massachusetts. Let's say you have a $1 billion insurance volume, dental insurance volume, like Massachusetts. By the way, like California is a $6 billion, okay? Let's just stay on Massachusetts. A $1 billion insurance volume, okay? Let's say you only have one loophole, and it's charitable contributions, which is the biggest of the loopholes. And they give away, the insurance company makes a charitable contribution, usually to its own affiliate company. And it makes a charitable contribution that's unlimited. They are unlimited in all states, except for Massachusetts. They make a charitable contribution of $500 million, okay? 1 billion minus 500 million means that their denominator is no longer a billion. Their denominator is 500 million, okay? Now, if their denominator is 500 million, what do they have to pay in paid claims to be at an 83% dental loss ratio? And the answer is 415 million. Now, compare the true DLR number of 830 million that you see on the screen, okay, at an 83% DLR, to the fake DLR, where they were able to take out that denominator amount of charitable contributions unlimited, okay? In that case, they're still at 83% DLR, but what's the buying power change? It's 50% for the patient, okay? So that's a big deal. Now, what you have is the top, the real DLR is Massachusetts. The bottom is the end coil DLR, which many people have heard me scream about, the fact that organized dentistry has made a deal through the National Council on Insurance Legislation and the National Association of Dental Plans to adopt this fake DLR for other states. And I would say we need to get out of that, and I'll be making that pitch later. So let's look specifically at these big three loopholes. Charitable contributions. I made a ridiculous statement last time, like what if they have $500 million that they give away in charitable contributions? And of course, the skeptic, and I like skeptics, the skeptic would say, but Dr. Rizkallah, who would really do that? Well, let me show you who would do that. This is 2019. This is a return of organization exempt from federal income tax. So this is a tax exempt organization. What is this organization? This is Delta Dental of Massachusetts. What's their address? 465 Medford Street, Boston, Massachusetts. This is 2019. 2019, what did they pay in benefits paid to or for members? They paid $177 million for members. But wait, let's go to Schedule N. They made a contribution of investment assets of $291 million. To who? To Catalyst Institute, also located at 465 Medford Street, Boston, Massachusetts. That's their parent company, okay? Now you may say, oh, well, that's a one-off, right? It's not a one-off. Let me show you what happened in 2018. 2018, they paid $184 million. And in Schedule O, what did they give Catalyst Institute? $327 million, okay? So $184 million for patients, $327 million for themselves. They gave it away. These are surpluses that no longer is going to happen in Massachusetts. And I've now shown you 2 years, and I can show you more. And those fluctuate. Sometimes they're big, sometimes they're small, sometimes they're 35 million. But this is what's happening, okay? That's not happening anymore, though. But you have to ask yourself, they're filling out a Form 990, which is a tax-exempt form. Is Delta Dental Massachusetts a not-for-profit? If they're doing that, I would argue no. Maybe technically, but effectively, no. Let's look at the second loophole, broker fees. So broker fees in the state of Massachusetts, and I have the data, but I won't take the time to show it, they range from 5 to 25%. Well, 5 to 25% on a $1 billion market is somewhere between $50 and $250 million given away to brokers instead of patients. Not anymore. In Massachusetts, it's in the 17% of the insurers. It's no longer part of the loss ratio. So we've really put that in check as well. What's the third one? Quality improvement activities. This is a very strange one, right? What is a quality improvement activities? It's basically community activities that an insurer says, look at us, we're doing nice things, but it doesn't actually put money into the individual pocket of a patient. Quality improvement activities are a loophole commonly used and abused so that the insurer can look like they're spending more on patient care, but really they're spending on things like their own marketing, like they have a big banner and they're having a big parade or whatever, and they call it a quality improvement activity. Or they're giving everybody out a bunch of toothbrushes with Delta Dental on it or Blue Cross Blue Shield. This is no longer allowed in Massachusetts, and we've closed that loophole. What's interesting, though, is that the National Association of Insurance Commissioners actually at one point made a rule that said every loss ratio, medical loss ratio, et cetera, can have up to 0.8 quality, 0.8% of revenue, quality improvement activities. And you don't have to report what you're doing with it. Just if you keep it to that, you're fine. What's interesting is, and I can show you that document. This is their standard. This is in 2018, an amount equal to 0.8%. What's interesting is that this was actually repealed, and I put that at the top, repealed by a law, a case law, Columbus versus Trump, saying no, they can't. They have to actually justify what they're using this for. In Massachusetts, we made a very highly restricted law, and I want to point it out to everybody so that they know in their states as they're considering QIA, because you're going to have to deal with it, that you should adopt our language. Actually, our language should be adopted for even medical. And in it, it says a QIA does not include any activities identified in 45 CFR 158.150, but then it goes further. It can't have any marketing components that display the name of the carrier or which are paid for by the carrier to any affiliate of the carrier in any way, directly and indirectly. Now, what's the effect? And this is I've only read some of the salient parts, but what's the effect of this? Okay, in Massachusetts, in our law. Well, the effect is, look at Blue Cross Blue Shield in Massachusetts. What did they say? They said, when asked how much qualified improvement quality improvement activities they're going to have, they said, please note, we do not have programs that meet the definition included in 211 CMR 156, which was that definition I just read to you. They're saying we can't meet that definition. So how much do they have in that loophole? Zero. Okay, that's what we want in every state. Zero. We want that money in the patient's pocket, not in wasteful activities. Okay. What did Delta Dental of Massachusetts do? Delta Dental of Massachusetts is going to be doing some computer program work. Okay. And they've gotten a whopping 0.12%. Okay, what's that? That's 1/10 of 1%. Okay, now let me contrast that from the NCOIL agreement. The NCOIL agreement allows 5%. Let's click on that. The NCOIL agreement, where does it say that? It says it right here. Activities conducted by an issuer intended to improve dental care quality shall not exceed 5%. Okay, 5% on $1 billion volume like Massachusetts is $50 million. Okay. The 0.12% that Delta is talking about is a couple $100,000. Okay, this is a massive swing. Okay, that loophole needs to be closed. So the big three loopholes are closed in Massachusetts through the regulations, through data collection tools, and through and let me show you when you look again at the Delta Dental financials. What are we getting to? We're getting to 83.3%. And if you were to look at their numbers in terms of where their premiums are, their premiums did not increase at all for patients. That's something. Now, when we went through Massachusetts question 2, everybody, the National Association of Dental Plans was screaming, if you let this pass, there'll be no more insurers in Massachusetts. We knew that would not be true. Okay, and here's what's actually happened. In 2022, there were 26 insurers. In 2025, there are 21 insurers and more coming. There are more coming that have not been in the state before, and they're coming because of question 2. Why? Because they can provide a great value to patients. But now, instead of being hidden behind the Delta Dental banner, which is just a very strong brand, they can actually rely on their transparent reporting so that they can compete on their value. And so here's what you're seeing: individual groups, small group, large group, group associations. There's coverage in all the groups, but what I have here in green is Guardian Life Insurance. Guardian was paraded across the nation after question 2 passed, saying Massachusetts has messed it all up. Look, Guardian's leaving. Did Guardian leave? Guardian left the individual group plans, and there's plenty of other providers in the group plan, suppliers of dental insurance in the group plan. So this is the type of fear mongering that actually harms really the community, the community that's looking to provide value for patient care. Let me go further. Delta Dental of California, many dental insurance, the Dental Society in California thinks Delta Dental of California is providing an 88% dental loss ratio. But if you go into the Delta Dental of California reports, what you actually find is Delta Dental California is actually taking credit for third-party administrator expenditures that they're not even insuring. So let me see if I can get to that. There it is. Okay. So this is administrative services contracts. They're just doing administrative services. They're not insuring the plans. And they're saying the company, not the plan sponsor, meaning Delta Dental, not the plan sponsor, not the employer that has self-insurance, is ultimately responsible for maintaining compliance with all applicable federal and state laws and regulations. As a result, it is management's belief that the company acts as the principal instead of the agent. Now, for those who don't know what that means, people just like peruse over that and not think about it. But for somebody who knows what they're reading, what they're basically saying is we're going to include in our dental loss ratio the spending that is not actually our spending, that we're just spending as an administrator, but we're not the insurer. So for those who are in California who are being tricked into believing that they're actually at an 88%, they're not at 88%. I've done the math for Delta Dental of California. They're at 74%. Okay, so you do need a dental loss ratio. I'm going to skip forward a little bit and just talk a little bit about ERISA and Medicaid. Okay, I have been telling people multiple times, you do not need to manage ERISA. You do not need to govern ERISA, because ERISA will be governed through dental loss ratio. And I'm going to make a point here. This is a report that came out of the dental loss ratio in Massachusetts, from Delta Dental of Massachusetts. As a reminder, Delta Dental of Massachusetts uses the same networks for our entire business, both risk and administrative services only. So any change in fee schedule impacts all clients and members, not just associated with the connector. What are they saying? They're saying our DLR is going to affect their self-funded plans, the RISA plans. Let me just end with advice for the national organizations. Number one, we should be abandoning NCOIL immediately, okay? And the NADP is celebrating. I can show you their celebrations, but I'm not going to do that. NADP is National Association of Dental Plans. Second thing I would advise is wait for Massachusetts data to come out. You can't do much until the Massachusetts data has really come out with good reporting, after which you can convince legislators by filing legislation and showing them Massachusetts data, showing them through Massachusetts data that this is good consumer protection. The second thing I would do is file a dental ballot, ideally in Colorado. I think Colorado is a very ripe place to be doing this. Now, people will say a dental ballot is too expensive, but I would say, is it? I don't think it is. I think the revenues that we're seeing in our organizations, whether it's the ADA or the AGD, I think we can do this. And let me give you some math. We've had so far, we'll be getting annually over a 1,000% return on investment on the dental ballot in Massachusetts. For example, what was our cost? I personally paid $3 million for the ballot in Massachusetts, and then the ADA came in behind me and provided $5.5 million. Total, that's $8.5 million. And I showed you the math. It's going to provide return of over $100 million per year. Okay, what is that in terms of return on investment? Have we ever seen a return on investment that looks like that? The answer is no. So let me end with that. I have other things to show you, but it's a limited time. So thank you very much for your time, and I'm just going to open this up to any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Rizkallah. First of all, we really need to thank you of all your efforts you had both in the state of Massachusetts and nationwide on the subject of medical and dental loss ratio. It's really opened a lot of eyes, especially of practicing dentists, on how compensation is calculated and how they're getting and how patients are getting their return on their premiums. So we appreciate all the work you did. We know it's a long journey. You've shown us a good path here, and we've got a couple questions. The first question that I got actually comes from California. So I'll read you the question and then you can answer it directly to the member. On the medical loss ratios, is there any enforcement or regulations on how the companies are calculating the percentage to patient care? Any auditing on accounting? ? Coming from California and the land of Hollywood accounting, it's easy to remain skeptical on the actual effect.
The answer to that question is no, unless the dentists or the societies in California are pushing the question. So I'm from Massachusetts, but I've been observing what's happening in California, and I have reached out to the California auditors and asked them multiple questions. And though I don't have a lot of time to spend in California, I really am pointing you to it and saying, this is your land in Massachusetts. You guys should be taking what I just presented in this and saying, that line where it says, as a result, it's management belief that the company acts as the principal instead of the agent. What they're doing there is they're including self-funded DLR calculations in their insured DLR calculations. You need to take that to them, to your division of insurance, and say, this is what they're doing, and can you show them how they break it out? Now, they do at the end of their financial statement, on the last page, on their consolidating financial statement, they actually provide the data. And when you do that data, it's not that hard. You get to 74%. So to answer your question, are they overseeing it? They're overseeing it to the extent that they're collecting it and generally saying, okay, it looks okay, but they're not doing the type of forensic accounting that we need to be doing for ourselves, and we should not be relying on anyone other than ourselves to do it.
Good. Thank you. Next question. Last year, there were 3 states that enacted dental loss ratio bills, but that only included reporting requirements for dental insurers. The question is this a good first step towards the ultimate goal of having ratios like 83%? Or is this just a dead end allowing the legislature to drop the issue going forward?
So this is a very interesting question. I love it. It's a double-edged sword is the answer. And the reason it's a double-edged sword is because on the one hand, you're saying information is good. Okay, but misinformation is not good. Okay. And what you do by adopting a structure, an information reporting structure that where the calculations, like I showed on the big three loopholes, if the big three loopholes are built into your information structure, it's going to actually root into your system. So by the time that you put your 83% in it, if your reporting is still based with those three loopholes, then what you're left with is actually fake DLR. So is reporting enough? Yes, reporting is awesome, but you've got to make sure that they're reporting the DLR and the DLR elements without using the three big loopholes.
Okay, so your advice, taking that, what you just said, saying reporting is good. So if you see a state that's potentially thinking of doing that and they're being told that it's going to be on a report-only mode, what steps do they need to ensure that the right reporting is being done?
So great question. So really, the Massachusetts dental loss ratio regulation. So I wrote the statute, okay? Underneath the statute is regulations that are built by the Division of Insurance, okay? And so when I wrote the statute, I said, this is what has to be in the regs, and I assigned the Division of Insurance to write those regs. They took the past year and they did produce those regs, and they produced excellent regs, okay? Now, to give credit to the American Dental Association, at the last House of Delegates, the American Dental Association revised their DLR resolution and basically adopted what is essentially the Massachusetts regs. And so from a practical standpoint, you could actually go to the Massachusetts regs, copy paste them, and weave them into your existing regulations of every state and say, even if you're not going to give us a percentage like Massachusetts has, we want that reporting.
Good, that's good advice. Dr. Rizkallah, unfortunately, we've run out of time, and I know, like you said, we could talk all day about this, and I know you could because you have the information. But unfortunately, we have to move on to our next. It
was a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks again for your participation. We really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
This has been a production of Dentistry in General Radio Network. Visit our website, dentistryingeneral.com, to join engaging clinical and business conversations, explore our dental podcasts, and stay updated on our upcoming live events.